The first flake of snow touched Tyler Foster's weathered face at dawn, and by noon, the Wyoming plains had turned into a blinding white hell that swallowed the horizon whole. He had been riding for 3 days straight, moving cattle from the summer pasture back to the winter grounds near Galesburg, when the storm hit with a fury that seemed personal. The wind screamed across the flatlands like a woman in mourning, and Tyler pulled his coat tighter, squinting through the whiteout as his horse, a sturdy bay mare named Molly, trudged forward with her head down. He was alone, which was how he preferred it these days. Ever since Margaret died 2 years back from the fever that swept through town in the winter of 1881. Now it was January 1883, and Tyler had grown accustomed to the silence that filled his days, the emptiness of his small ranch, the cold side of the bed that would never warm again. But then he saw something that made him pull hard on the reins. A dark shape in the snow, huddled against a boulder, barely visible through the driving wind. At first he thought it might be a wounded animal, maybe a calf separated from the herd, but as Molly picked her way closer, Tyler's heart seized in his chest. It was a woman, curled on her side, her dark hair matted with ice, her lips blue, her eyes closed. She wore a thin traveling dress that was completely inadequate for the brutal Wyoming winter, and her hands were bare, the fingers already turning an ominous gray. Tyler was off his horse before he could think, his knees hitting the snow as he reached for her. "Madam," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Madam, can you hear me?" He pressed 2 fingers against her throat, searching for a pulse, and felt the faint flutter of life still beating there. Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by urgency. She would not last much longer out here. He looked around, trying to get his bearings in the blizzard. He had passed an old line shack about a mile back, one of those rough cabins that ranchers maintained for exactly this kind of emergency. It was their only chance. Tyler pulled off his heavy coat and wrapped it around the woman, then lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, all bones and cold skin, and her head lolled against his shoulder. He managed to get her onto Molly, positioning her in front of the saddle, then climbed up behind her, holding her tight against his chest as he turned the mare back the way they had come. The ride to the line shack felt like it took hours, though it could not have been more than 30 minutes. Tyler talked to Molly the whole way, encouraging her, praising her, while the woman in his arms remained terrifyingly still. When the rough outline of the cabin finally emerged from the white curtain of snow, Tyler nearly wept with relief. He dismounted carefully, pulled the woman down, and kicked open the door. Inside, the cabin was dark and cold, but at least it blocked the wind. Tyler laid the woman on the single cot in the corner, then immediately set about building a fire in the small stove. His hands shook as he struck the match, not from cold but from the fear that he might be too late, that he might watch another woman die while he stood helpless. But he forced the thoughts away and focused on the tasks at hand. Fire first, then warm water. Then he would need to get her out of those wet clothes before the cold killed her. The kindling caught, and Tyler added larger pieces of wood, stoking the flames until heat began to radiate from the stove. He found a dented pot and filled it with snow, setting it on the stove to melt. Then he turned his attention back to the woman. Her breathing was shallow, barely visible, and her skin had taken on a waxy quality that terrified him. He had seen frostbite before, had seen men lose fingers and toes and sometimes whole limbs to the cruel bite of winter. "I am sorry," he said to her unconscious form, "but I have got to get you warm." His hands were gentle but efficient as he removed her sodden dress, her undergarments, everything that was wet and cold. He tried not to look, tried to maintain her dignity even in this desperate situation. wrapping her immediately in the 2 wool blankets he found in the trunk at the foot of the bed. Then he removed his own wet shirt and climbed onto the narrow cot beside her, pulling her against him. Sharing his body heat in the way he knew was sometimes the only thing that could bring someone back from the edge of freezing. She was so cold against him that it was like holding ice, and Tyler wrapped his arms around her, rubbing her back, her arms, trying to stimulate circulation. "Come on," he murmured. "Come on, stay with me. You are going to be all right. I've got you now." Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Tyler lost track of time as he held her, as the cabin slowly warmed, as the snow outside continued to fall in relentless sheets. He checked the fire periodically, adding more wood, and when the water in the pot began to steam, he soaked a cloth and gently wiped her face, her hands, her feet, checking for frostbite. Her fingers and toes were in bad shape, but he did not think she would lose any, not if he could help it. And then finally she stirred. A small sound escaped her lips, somewhere between a moan and a sigh, and her eyelids fluttered. Tyler felt his heart leap. "That is it," he said softly. "Come back. You are safe now." Her eyes opened slowly, and Tyler found himself looking into the deepest brown eyes he had ever seen, confused and frightened but alive, so beautifully alive. "Where?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Where am I?" "You are in a lined shack about 15 miles north of Galesburg, Wyoming," Tyler said. "I found you in the snow. You were nearly frozen. What is your name?" She blinked at him, and he saw her trying to focus, trying to make sense of her surroundings. "Catherine," she said finally. "Catherine Greene, I." She stopped, her eyes widening as she seemed to realize she was nearly naked, wrapped in blankets, pressed against a shirtless stranger. Color flooded her cheeks, which Tyler took as another good sign. "I am sorry," he said quickly, starting to pull away. "You were freezing. I had to get you warm. Your clothes were all wet." "No," she said, her hand coming up to grip his arm with surprising strength. "Do not go. I am still so cold." So Tyler stayed, and they lay there together as the storm raged outside, as the fire crackled and popped, as the small cabin became a warm sanctuary against the brutal world beyond its walls. Catherine's shivers gradually subsided, and Tyler could feel life returning to her body, her skin warming, her breathing deepening. "Thank you," she said after a long while. "You saved my life." "What were you doing out there?" Tyler asked. "In the middle of a blizzard, dressed like that?" Catherine's face clouded, and Tyler saw pain flicker across her features. "Running," she said simply. "From what?" She was quiet for a moment, and Tyler thought she might not answer. But then she took a deep breath and said, "From my husband." The words hit Tyler like a physical blow, and he felt something inside him sink. Of course she was married. A woman like this, beautiful even half frozen and exhausted, would not be alone in the world. But Catherine continued, her voice low and steady. "He died 3 weeks ago. Or at least everyone thinks he died." Tyler frowned. "I do not understand, James Greene," Catherine said, and Tyler heard the bitterness in her voice. "He was a banker in Cheyenne, respected, successful. Everyone thought he was such a good man." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They did not know what he was like at home. They did not see the bruises I hid, or hear the things he said to me, or know how he controlled every aspect of my life." Tyler felt anger stirring in his chest, hot and protective. "He hurt you." "For 6 years," Catherine said. "Since I was 18 years old. I married him because my father said it was a good match, because I was young and stupid and I thought I loved him. But James only loved control. He loved having power over me. And 3 weeks ago there was a fire at the bank. A terrible fire. James was inside. They found a body, burned beyond recognition, but everyone assumed it was him. His pocket watch was there, his ring. So they buried what was left and held a funeral. But he is not dead, Tyler said, understanding creeping over him like cold water. Catherine shook her head. 2 days after the funeral, I was alone in the house, going through his papers, and I found something. A letter, hidden in his desk. It was addressed to a man named Robert Thorne, and it talked about the plan. The fire was deliberate. James said it. He killed one of the clerks, a man named Peter who was about his size, dressed him in his clothes, left his watch and ring, made it look like he died in the fire. Why? Tyler asked. Why would he do that? The bank was failing, Catherine said. James had been embezzling money for years, covering his tracks, but it was all about to come crashing down. The auditors were coming. So he staged his own death, and now he is running with all the money he stole. And according to the letter, once enough time has passed, once the trail is cold, he is coming back for me, to take me with him to Mexico or California or wherever he plans to go. Tyler felt Catherine trembling again, but this time not from cold. I could not do it, she whispered. I could not go with him, could not spend the rest of my life running, hiding, living with a murderer and a thief. So I left. I took what little money I had hidden away and I ran. I bought a ticket on the stage heading west, planning to lose myself somewhere, start over. But the stage broke an axle yesterday morning and the driver said we would have to wait for repairs. And then James found me. He found you, Tyler said sharply. Catherine nodded. I was staying at a boarding house in a little town. I do not even remember the name, but I saw him. Through the window, walking down the street, and he was looking at the buildings, looking for me. I went out the back, took a horse from the stable, just climbed on and ran. I have never stolen anything in my life, but I was so scared. Her voice broke. I rode all night, and then the storm came, and the horse threw me and ran off, and I was lost. I thought I was going to die out there. I thought maybe that would be better than what James would do if he caught me. Tyler held her closer, his mind racing. You are safe here, he said firmly. I promise you, I will not let anyone hurt you. You do not know him, Catherine said. You do not know what he is capable of. Maybe not, Tyler said, but he does not know me either. And I've got my rifle, and I know this territory better than any city banker ever could. If he comes looking, he will not find you, and if by some chance he does, he will have to go through me first. Catherine pulled back slightly to look at him, really look at him, and Tyler felt something shift between them, something powerful and undeniable. Her brown eyes searched his face, and he saw hope there, fragile but real. Why would you do this for me? She asked. You do not even know me. Tyler thought about that question, thought about Margaret and the 2 years of loneliness that had followed her death, thought about how it felt to hold this woman in his arms and feel needed again, feel alive again. Because it is the right thing to do, he said. And because I know what it is like to lose someone, I will not stand by and watch it happen if I can prevent it. They stayed in the line shack for 2 days while the storm blew itself out. Tyler cared for Catherine with a gentleness that surprised him, helping her when the frostbite in her fingers made it hard to hold things, heating soup from the canned goods stored in the cabin, talking to her in the long hours when there was nothing to do but wait. He learned that she loved to raid, that she had wanted to be a teacher before her father pushed her into marriage, that she had a younger sister in Philadelphia she had not seen in 4 years because James would not allow it. In turn, Tyler told her about his ranch, about Margaret and the brief happiness they had shared before the fever took her, about the loneliness of the years since. He found himself talking more than he had in months, maybe years, and Catherine listened with an intensity that made him feel seen in a way he had almost forgotten. On the 3rd morning, the sun broke through the clouds, turning the snow-covered landscape into a glittering wonderland. Tyler saddled Molly and helped Catherine up, and they began the slow ride to his ranch. Catherine wore his spare shirt and a pair of his pants, cinched tight with a belt, her long dark hair braided down her back. Tyler had never seen a woman in pants before, but he had to admit she looked right in them, natural, like she belonged in this wild country. The ranch came into view as the sun reached its peak, a modest spread with a sturdy log house, a barn, and several outbuildings. It was not much, Tyler knew, especially compared to what Catherine must have been used to in Cheyenne, but it was his, bought and paid for with honest work. "It is beautiful," Catherine said softly, and Tyler felt a warm glow of pride. He helped her down and led her inside, where the cold had settled in during his absence. "Make yourself at home," he said. "I need to see to Molly and check on the stock, but I will be back soon." When Tyler returned an hour later, he found Catherine standing at the stove, heating water for coffee. She had found Margaret's old dresses in the trunk in the bedroom, and she was wearing a simple blue calico that fit her well enough. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and in the afternoon light streaming through the window, she looked like something from a dream. "I hope you do not mind," she said, gesturing at the dress. "I found it and I thought—" "It is fine," Tyler said, his voice rougher than he intended. "It is good to see someone wearing it again." Over the following days, a routine developed. Tyler worked the ranch, tending to the cattle and horses, mending fences, doing all the 100 small tasks that kept a place running. Catherine, as she recovered her strength, began to help around the house, cooking meals that were better than anything Tyler had eaten in years, mending his worn shirts, bringing warmth and life back into the cold spaces. But always, there was the shadow of James Greene hanging over them. Tyler made inquiries in town carefully, not wanting to draw attention. A man had been through Galesburg a week ago, he learned, asking about a dark-haired woman traveling alone. Tyler's jaw clenched when he heard this, and he made sure his rifle was always loaded, always within reach. "He is getting closer," Catherine said one evening as they sat by the fire. She had been quiet all day, tense, and now Tyler saw fear in her eyes. "Let him come," Tyler said. "This is my land, my home. He has no power here." "You do not understand," Catherine said, twisting her hands in her lap. "James is smart. He is patient. He will not just walk up to the door. He will wait, watch, find the right moment. And he has nothing to lose now. He is already wanted for embezzlement and murder, even if no one knows it yet. What is one more death to him?" Tyler moved to sit beside her on the settee, taking her hands in his. "Catherine, look at me." When she did, he said, "I have been thinking about this, about what to do. We could go to the law, tell them what you know about the fire, about the letter." "I do not have the letter anymore," Catherine said. "I left everything behind when I ran. It is my word against the word of a dead man, and who will believe me? James made sure everyone in Cheyenne thought I was unstable, emotional. He laid the groundwork for years. If I come forward now, they will think I am mad with grief, making up stories." "Then we go further west," Tyler said. "California, Oregon, somewhere he will never find you." Catherine shook her head slowly. "I cannot ask you to leave your home, your life. You have done so much already." "You are not asking," Tyler said. "I am offering." He paused, gathering his courage, then said the words that had been building in his heart for days. "Catherine, I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other, but these past days with you have been. I have not felt this way since Margaret died. I care about you. I want to protect you, not just because it is right, but because I cannot imagine my life without you in it now." Catherine's eyes widened, and Tyler saw tears gathering there. "Tyler," she whispered. "I know you are still married in the eyes of the law anyway," Tyler continued. "And I know you are running, scared, not sure what tomorrow will bring. I am not asking you for anything you cannot give, but I want you to know that you are not alone in this. Whatever comes, we face it together." A tear slipped down Catherine's cheek and she reached up to cup Tyler's face with her hand. "I care about you too," she said. "So much it frightens me. I told myself I would never let another man have power over me, never let myself be vulnerable again. But with you, it is different. You are different. You ask, you do not demand. You offer, you do not take. You have shown me more kindness in these few days than James did in 6 years." Tyler turned his head to press a kiss to her palm, and then he was pulling her close, and their lips met in a kiss that was soft and hesitant at first, then deeper, filled with all the longing and fear and hope they both carried. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Tyler rested his forehead against hers. "We will figure this out," he said. "I promise you." But that night, Tyler could not sleep. He lay in his bed, knowing Catherine was just on the other side of the wall in the spare room, and his instincts were screaming that something was wrong. Finally, unable to ignore the feeling any longer, he rose and dressed, taking his rifle from beside the bed. He moved quietly through the dark house, checking the windows, the doors, seeing nothing but the peaceful Wyoming night outside. And then he heard it, the soft creak of a floorboard that was not made by him. Tyler spun, bringing the rifle up, and found himself face to face with a man standing in the doorway. He was well dressed, even after days on the trail, with dark hair and cold eyes that reflected the moonlight like a cat's. "Where is she?" James Greene said, his voice cultured and calm as if he were inquiring about the weather. "Get out of my house," Tyler said, his finger on the trigger. James smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. "I do not think you understand the situation, Mr. Foster. Yes, I know your name. I have been watching for 2 days, learning about you. You are a widower, lonely, and my poor grieving wife took advantage of your kindness, but I am here now to collect what belongs to me." "She is not property," Tyler said, "and you have no claim on her. You are supposed to be dead, remember." "A technicality," James said. "Catherine is still my wife, and I am taking her with me one way or another. Now you can make this easy, let me have her and walk away with your life, or you can make this difficult and I will kill you and take her anyway. Your choice." Tyler heard a sound behind him and risked a glance to see Catherine standing there, her face pale, wearing her nightdress, her hair loose around her shoulders. "James," she said, and her voice was steady despite the fear Tyler could see in her eyes. "Hello, darling," James said pleasantly. "Did you really think you could run from me? Did you think I would not find you?" "How did you find me?" Catherine asked. "The horse you stole had a brand," James said. "I tracked it, found where it was returned to the stable in Galesburg. People in small towns talk, Catherine. They notice things. A strange woman staying at her ranch with a lonely cowboy. It was not hard to put the pieces together." Tyler kept the rifle trained on James, his mind racing through options. He could shoot, but James had his hand in his coat pocket, and Tyler had no doubt there was a gun there too. If he missed, if James was faster, Catherine would be at his mercy. "Catherine," James said, his voice hardening, "get your things. We are leaving. Now." "No," Catherine said, and Tyler heard the strength in her voice, the defiance. "I am not going with you, James, not now, not ever. You are a murderer and a thief, and I will not spend one more day under your control." James's face darkened. "You ungrateful little—" He started to move, his hand coming out of his pocket with a gleaming revolver, but Tyler was already moving too. The rifle barked, deafeningly loud in the small house, and James stumbled backward, a red stain spreading across his shoulder. His gun clattered to the floor. Tyler worked the lever action, chambering another round, keeping the rifle aimed at James, who was now slumped against the wall, his face twisted in pain and rage. "The next one goes through your heart," Tyler said coldly. "Do not give me a reason." Catherine ran past Tyler and snatched up James's fallen revolver, pointing it at him with shaking hands. "You killed Peter," she said, her voice breaking. "He had a wife, children, and you killed him just to save yourself." "He was nothing," James gasped. "Just a clerk. No one important." "He was a person," Catherine said. "He mattered. His life mattered." Tyler moved to Catherine's side, keeping his rifle trained on James. "Can you ride?" he asked her quietly. "Yes," she said. "Then get dressed quickly. We are going to the sheriff in Galesburg. We are ending this tonight." It took half an hour to bind James's wound well enough that he would not bleed out on the ride, then to tie his hands and get him onto a horse. Dawn was breaking by the time they reached Galesburg, riding down the main street to the small building that served as the sheriff's office. Sheriff Tom Mathers was just arriving for the day, a grizzled man in his 50s who had known Tyler for years. "Tyler," he said, surprised. "What is going on?" "This man is James Greene," Tyler said, pulling James down from the horse, none too gently. "He is wanted for embezzlement and murder in Cheyenne. This woman is his wife, Catherine Greene, and she has testimony that will prove it all." It took hours to tell the whole story, with Sheriff Mathers sending telegrams to Cheyenne, bringing in the circuit judge who happened to be in town, taking statements from both Tyler and Catherine. More telegrams came back, confirming that the bank fire was being investigated, that irregularities in the books had been discovered, that the body found in the fire had now been identified as Peter Morrison, a bank clerk who was thought to have perished trying to save the money. James, his shoulder bandaged by the town doctor under guard, said nothing, his cold eyes fixed on Catherine the entire time. But the evidence was overwhelming, and by the end of the day, James Greene was locked in a cell, awaiting transport back to Cheyenne to stand trial. "You did a brave thing, Miss Greene," Judge Harrison said to Catherine. "Coming forward like this, knowing what you would face, it takes courage." Catherine shook her head. "I had help," she said, looking at Tyler. "I could not have done it alone." As they left the sheriff's office, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Tyler and Catherine walked slowly down the street, both exhausted, both still processing everything that had happened. "What happens now?" Catherine asked. "Now you are free," Tyler said. "James will hang for murder and you can have your life back. You can go anywhere, do anything." Catherine stopped walking and turned to face him. "What if I do not want to go anywhere?" she said. "What if I want to stay here with you?" Tyler's heart leaped, but he forced himself to be practical. "Catherine, you are still married to him legally, until the divorce is final or until—" "He could not finish the sentence. Until he hangs," Catherine said quietly. "I know. But Tyler, I mean what I said before. These past days with you have shown me what life could be like, what love should be like, and I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose you." Tyler reached out and took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Then stay," he said. "Stay and help me run the ranch. Stay and let me court you properly the way you deserve. And when the time is right, when you are ready, marry me. Make this house a home again." Catherine smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Yes," she said. "Yes to all of it." The trial took place in Cheyenne 3 months later. Tyler accompanied Catherine, holding her hand as she testified about the letter she had found, about James's cruelty, about everything she knew. The prosecution had found more evidence too. Witnesses who had seen James in the days after his supposed death. Bank records that clearly showed the embezzlement, and most damning of all, the real cause of Peter Morrison's death, a blow to the back of the head before the fire ever started. The jury deliberated for less than an hour before finding James Greene guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to hang, and Tyler watched as they led him away, Catherine's hand gripping his so tight he could feel her pulse racing. "It is over," he murmured to her. "It is finally over." Catherine nodded, tears streaming down her face, but Tyler thought they might be tears of relief as much as anything else. "Can we go home now?" she asked. "Yes," Tyler said, pulling her close. "Let us go home." They were married 6 months later, after the divorce was finalized and a decent period of mourning had passed, though Catherine made it clear she mourned only for the years she had lost, not for the man himself. The wedding was small, held in the little church in Galesburg, with Sheriff Mathers and his wife as witnesses, and a handful of townspeople who had come to know and respect Catherine in her time at the ranch. Catherine wore a dress of soft green that brought out the color in her eyes, her hair pulled up with small white flowers woven through it. Tyler wore his best suit, brushed and pressed, his hair combed back, and when he saw her walking down the aisle toward him, his breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was his, choosing him just as he chose her, freely and without coercion. "Do you, Tyler Foster, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the preacher asked. "I do," Tyler said, his voice strong and sure. "And do you, Catherine Greene, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," Catherine said, and her smile could have lit up the darkest night. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Tyler kissed her gently, reverently, and the small gathering broke into applause. They walked out of the church together into the bright Wyoming sunshine, and Tyler felt a completeness he had not known since Margaret died, different but just as real, just as precious. The years that followed were good ones. Catherine thrived at the ranch, proving to have a natural way with horses and a head for the business side of ranching that Tyler had always struggled with. She started a small school in their front room, teaching the children of neighboring ranchers their letters and numbers, finding at last the calling she had always wanted. Tyler expanded the herd, built a new barn, and with Catherine's help, turned their modest spread into one of the most successful ranches in the territory. In the spring of 1885, Catherine gave birth to their first child, a boy they named Thomas, who had his mother's dark hair and his father's gray eyes. Tyler held his son in his arms and felt a joy so fierce it was almost painful, looking at Catherine exhausted but radiant in the bed, looking at this new life they had created together. "He is perfect," Catherine whispered. "He is," Tyler agreed, "just like his mother." 2 years later, a daughter arrived, Margaret Catherine, named for both the woman Tyler had lost and the woman he had found. And then, in 1889, another son called James Peter, and when Catherine told Tyler the name she had chosen, he had questioned it. "Are you sure?" he asked. "After everything." "James was the name my grandfather bore," Catherine said. "It is a good name, and I will not let him take that from me. And Peter is for the man my first husband murdered, the man whose death gave me my freedom in a way. It is important to me that we remember the good in those names, not just the bad." And so their family grew, filling the house with laughter and noise and love. Tyler taught the boys to ride, to rope, to work the land, while Catherine taught the girl to read and cipher and stand up for herself in a world that often told women they were less than. In the evenings, they would all gather around the fire, and Catherine would read aloud from whatever book they were working through, her voice rising and falling with the story, holding them all captive. Tyler would watch her in those moments, still amazed after all these years that she was his, that she had chosen to stay, that out of tragedy and fear had come this beautiful life. Sometimes she would catch him looking and smile, that private smile that was just for him, and he would remember the woman he had found in the snow, half frozen and terrified, and marvel at the strength she had shown, the courage it took to run, to fight, to choose love over fear. In 1891, Wyoming became a state, and Catherine became one of the first women in America to vote, thanks to Wyoming's progressive constitution. Tyler stood beside her at the polling place, proud beyond words, watching as she cast her ballot with a steady hand. "Margaret would have loved to see this," he said quietly, and Catherine squeezed his hand. "I wish I could have known her," she said. "She must have been remarkable to have captured your heart." "She was," Tyler said, "but so are you, in different ways but equally remarkable." The years turned to decades. The children grew and had children of their own. Thomas took over the ranch, proving to be an even better rancher than his father, with a gift for breeding horses that brought buyers from as far away as California. Margaret Catherine became a teacher like her mother, opening a proper schoolhouse in Galesburg that served children from all over the county. James Peter studied law and became a prosecutor, dedicating his life to seeking justice for those who could not seek it for themselves, a calling his mother fully supported even as she worried about him in the dangerous work. Tyler and Catherine grew old together, their hair turning silver, their steps slowing, but their love never diminishing. They would sit on the porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over the mountains, holding hands like young lovers, talking about everything and nothing. "Do you ever regret it?" Tyler asked one evening in the summer of 1910. They were both in their 60s now, their children grown, their grandchildren running wild in the yard. Staying here instead of going back east, having a different life. Catherine looked at him, and in her brown eyes, he saw the same woman he had found in the snow all those years ago, strong and brave and beautiful. "Not for one single moment," she said. "You gave me back my life, Tyler. You showed me what it meant to be loved, truly loved, not controlled or possessed but cherished. Everything I have, everything I am, I owe to that day you found me, to your kindness, your courage, your love." "I think we saved each other," Tyler said, lifting her hand to his lips. "I was so lost after Margaret died, just going through the motions, waiting for my own end. And then you came into my life, and you woke me up again. You reminded me that there was still beauty in the world, still reasons to get up in the morning, still love to be found and given." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching as little Thomas, their youngest grandchild, chased the barn cat around the yard, shrieking with laughter. "We made a good life," Catherine said softly. "A really good life. The best," Tyler agreed. That night, lying in bed together, Catherine curled against Tyler's side the way she had every night for nearly 30 years. Tyler thought about the chain of events that had brought them here. The blizzard that could have killed her but instead brought her to him. The courage she showed in standing up to James, in choosing freedom over safety. The love they had built day by day, year by year, into something solid and lasting and true. "I love you," he whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Catherine murmured back, already half asleep. "Always." Tyler Foster died peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1915, at the age of 72, with Catherine holding his hand. The doctor said his heart simply stopped, worn out after a long and full life. Catherine mourned him deeply, but not desperately, knowing that they had been blessed with far more years together than many couples ever got, that they had loved well and completely and without regret. She lived another 7 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, still sharp and engaged with the world, still reading voraciously, still telling stories about the early days of the ranch and the Wild West that was rapidly disappearing into history and legend. She spoke often of Tyler, of his kindness, his strength, his quiet courage, making sure that the younger generations knew the kind of man he had been. On a cold January day in 1922, Catherine Greene Foster passed away in her sleep, exactly 40 years after Tyler had found her in the snow. Her children buried her beside him on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple headstone that read, "Beloved wife, mother, and friend, she chose love." And if sometimes, on winter evenings when the snow falls soft over the Wyoming plains, people swear they see two figures walking hand in hand across the white fields, well, those who knew the story just smile and say that love like that never truly dies. It endures, echoing through the generations, a testament to the power of choosing courage over fear, love over hate, hope over despair. The ranch still stands today, run by the descendants of Tyler and Catherine Foster, and in the main house, in a place of honor above the fireplace, hangs a photograph from their wedding day. Tyler stands tall and proud in his suit, Catherine beside him in her green dress, and on both their faces is a joy so pure and real that it transcends the faded sepia tones of the old photograph. Visitors often stop to look at it, drawn by something in their expressions, some quality that speaks across the decades. And the current generation of Fosters, when asked about it, tells the story of how their great-great-grandfather found a woman stranded in the snow during a blizzard in 1883, and how what she told him changed everything. How her courage in escaping an abusive husband, in standing up to a murderer, in choosing to stay and build a life in the Wild West, became the foundation of a family dynasty. How Tyler's decision to help a stranger, to protect her, to love her, shaped not just his life but the lives of all who came after. It is a story told and retold, added to the family history, a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we least expect them, that courage and love can triumph over evil and fear, and that the choices we make in those crucial moments ripple out across time in ways we can never fully anticipate or measure. The love story of Tyler Foster and Catherine Greene became a legend in Wyoming, a tale that embodied the spirit of the Wild West, the frontier determination, the belief that a person could start over, could shed the past, and build a new future through sheer will and hard work and love. Their story was one of redemption and second chances, of finding light in the darkest moments, of two lonely souls who found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. And perhaps that is the real magic of their story, the reason it endures and inspires. Not just that Tyler saved Catherine from the snow, or that Catherine saved Tyler from his loneliness, but that they saved each other, day after day, year after year, through all the challenges and triumphs that life brought their way. They chose each other, freely and fully, and they never stopped choosing each other, right up until the very end. Their great-great-granddaughter, Catherine Tyler Foster, named for both of them, sometimes stands on that hill where they are buried and thinks about what it must have been like, that day in the snow. The cold, the fear, the desperation. And then the hope, the warmth, the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. She thinks about how different her life would be if Tyler had ridden past that boulder, if he had not stopped, if he had not cared. But he did stop. He did care. And because of that, because of the love that grew from that single act of compassion, whole generations have lived and thrived, carrying forward the values that Tyler and Catherine embodied, the belief in helping others, in standing up for what is right, in choosing love even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. The ranch still runs cattle, though they have diversified now, added tourism, offer trail rides and ranch experiences for city people who want a taste of the Old West. And every guest who comes through hears the story, sees the photograph, walks the land that Tyler and Catherine built together. Some of them leave changed, inspired by a love story that proves that happy endings are possible, that the darkest moments can lead to the brightest futures, that courage and compassion and love really can change everything. On winter nights, when the snow falls as it did that day in 1883, the current Fosters sometimes gather in the old house, now expanded and modernized but still recognizably the same building that Tyler built with his own hands. They sit by the fire, much as Tyler and Catherine used to do, and they tell the stories, passing them down to the next generation, making sure that the memory of that lonely cowboy and the woman he found in the snow never fades, because some stories are too important to forget. Some love's too powerful to let slip away into the mists of time. Tyler Foster and Catherine Greene loved each other with a depth and devotion that most people only dream of. And in doing so, they created something that would outlast them, outlast their children and grandchildren, a legacy of love that would endure as long as the mountains stand and the snow falls on the Wyoming plains. And that, in the end, is the truest measure of a life well lived. Not wealth or fame or power, but love given and received freely and without reserve. Tyler and Catherine understood that, lived it every day of their lives together, and in doing so they changed everything, not just for themselves but for all who came after, all who heard their story and felt their hearts stirred by the possibility of that kind of love. The lonely cowboy found a woman stranded in the snow, and what she told him did indeed change everything. But it was not just the telling, it was the listening, the believing, the choosing to stand beside her against the darkness. It was the daily decision to love, to cherish, to build a life together brick by brick, moment by moment, choice by choice. And in the end, they built something magnificent, something that would stand the test of time, a love story for the ages, a testament to the enduring power of the human heart to hope, to heal, to love without limit or end. Their story lives on, told around fires and dinner tables, written in family Bibles and passed down through generations, a bright thread running through the tapestry of American history, the history of the West, the history of ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply because it was right, because love demanded it, because in the end, love is all that matters, all that lasts, all that truly changes everything.